Hi, hello, and how are you? That's right. That Rockwell timepiece says it's time. So come on in and stay a while. It's time to get coached up with another edition of this award nominated sports show, The Coach Scott Field Show. That's right. Rockwell's a proud partner of The Coach Scott Field Show, and I am thrilled to be a brand ambassador. Go to rockwelltime.com, ROCKWELLTIME.com. That's right, Coach HP. I can spell, brother. Use the code COACH20 and receive 20% off of any item on that website. Like and follow the Coach Scott Field Show on our Facebook page. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button on our YouTube channel and hit that notification when these great shows are uploaded. If you're listening to us in podcast form, HP and I say turn that knob up. We're about to put that flavor in your ear. If you're watching us on DBTV, thank you. That's on Monday through Fridays, and we have an opportunity to be seen in over 300 million households. And thank you, thank you, thank you for our 300,000 loyal viewers daily. You can also see us on CSTV Wednesdays at 7 o'clock and the Rewind Sports 60. Thank you for your continued support on all those platforms. You're not here to hear me chat. You're here to listen to Coach HP Hernando Planels. Coach, welcome to the show, brother.
Listen, I'm excited to be here. I mean, with all those streaming and everything else going, I'm like, this is the big time. I've made it.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what, we have a great time. And you know what? We use our social media platforms. And then when these networks have picked us up, I don't care how this show is consumed. I'm just honored, thrilled, and humbled that guests like you make somebody follically challenged like me look good.
We're both follically challenged. I mean, hairstyle going on.
Oh, man, I love it. Coach, man, it's great to connect with you. I am so sorry that when you were here in Salt Lake City, we didn't have a chance to connect. You were busy with your family, and I know that's a priority. But, man, the next time you get out this way, man, we got to get together.
Yeah, no, we definitely will. As you know, my son swims at the U, so I'll be out there. He's got one more year of eligibility. He'll graduate in the spring, so I'll be out there a bunch of times over the next year. So we will definitely get together.
I love that. And following your social media content, the motivational stuff that you put out there, your energy, your personality. I mean, it's contagious and I love it. Where does that come from? Is that just who you are daily?
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. A lot of people ask that, like, are you like that all the time? No, I mean, I do have moments where, I have to talk myself and snap myself out of it. But really, it was rooted from being raised. My mom, devout Bible reader and Christian, and we'd always read and recite Psalm 91, which basically says, you're blessed and you could trample over any snakes, etc. And at the time, I'm like, all right, I'm just reciting stuff. And then as life has evolved, and as I realized that every minute, every second is a blessing, and you start, rewiring your mind to understand that that's what it is. And it's not just like a mantra, right? It's not just a saying or a social media thing. It really is. And it all comes from, I think, a place of love. And I've had to grow through that. I had kids young. I got divorced. I've had different coaching jobs, as you know. I've done different things in life. But here I am, really enjoying every minute, because those minutes could be taken away from me. So yes, to answer your question, it really is. That's where it comes from.
I love that. And I'm glad you mentioned your children. The family values are important to both of us. And I know how much you love your kids. Talk about your kids, talk about, how important it is to you to be a part of their lives. Because as coaches, we make a lot of sacrifices with travel and commitments, and that takes us away from our kids sometimes. But talk about how important it is for you, to have that relationship and have that quality relationship with your kids.
Well, it's the absolute best thing for me. I would speak every year at the Final Four, something called Always Dad. really it's like dads and coaching. And I started because I got divorced, I don't know, maybe 10, 11 years ago. And my ex-wife decided to move back to California without even me knowing. One day they're there, one day they're not. And, you know, so for a few years I was angry, but then also my kids were going into the high school age, which is a tough age for them. So it was always me having communication with them on the phone. And I was coaching at Duke at the time. So I'd been able to come out to the West Coast once a month. And my schedule would be I'd leave Duke in the morning. I'd get to LA at 10 a.m. I'd go see my mom. Then I'd pick up my kids from school. We'd go to Starbucks, do some homework, get dinner. They'd go recruiting with me, watch a game. Then I go drop them off. And then I'd have to catch my red-eye flight back to Durham, North Carolina, or somewhere else. So it was once a month. And there were many times I said to myself, you know, maybe my kids are better without me like always calling them all the time. You know, because every time I called, they picked up the phone. They were doing things and growing. And so a lot of times I battle with myself. I try to get jobs out in LA, but I'm also stubborn. So I wanted to stay in coaching. I thought I was on a good fast track to be a head coach. You know, it changes so quickly. Yep. And I just kept going, and really calling them and texting words of encouragement and love and pictures and everything. And over time, we just got stronger and stronger. And the biggest part was during COVID. My son and I had a good relationship, not a great relationship. Well, I was in Richmond, Virginia, working on a TV show, and he came to visit me when he was a swimmer at the University of Iowa. And a week later, the world shut down because of COVID. And he ended up living with me for 6 months. And it was just the greatest. You know, he got to know me. I got to know him. And we just have this great bond. And both my kids, I've got great bonds with both of them. Really, really blessed and lucky. But it takes work. But it's also allowing them to grow and experience life for themselves. And that's all they want. They want to be recognized as a growing person. So that's my long answer. They're the most important thing in my life.
Well, let's give them a shout out. Shout out to your son and your daughter. Go ahead and mention them and tell us, you know, what they're doing, you know, currently.
Yeah. So Preston, my son, he's 22 now, and he's a swimmer at the University of Utah. He's going to graduate this spring with communications, and then he has 1 more year of eligibility. I think he wants to coach. He has that coaching bug a little bit. And he's like an academic All-American. He's just all world in his books, and I have no idea where he got that from because his parents are very good at it. And then my daughter is at Chico State. She's a sophomore. She's in musical theater, and she played basketball up until her sophomore year. Then one day she was like, "Dad, I don't want to do this anymore." And I was like, "Great, this is even better. And I want you to do something you want to do." And so she just got casted in Chicago for the city of Chico, and she's in that process and everything else. So they don't know it, but they're loving and conquering life, right? At that moment for them, they don't feel that way. But as an older person, I see them like, dude, you guys are doing more than I ever did at that. I tell my son, I said, Preston, you're 22. I already had you when at 22, and here you are swimming against all these other folks, lifting weights and enjoying life. Like it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
Love to hear that. Congratulations to both of them on their endeavors and their choices. And I know they're going to be successful, and they feel the love and the warmth and the support and unconditional love from you, Coach. And so great job on that. Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's hard. I tell coaches all the time. I tell dads all the time, you know, you will miss a lot of moments, and you will have a lot of great moments. And the reality of life is that a lot of kids don't remember what happened when they were little unless they were fed that information somewhere else. And a lot of times, you know, I remember like, hey, I miss moments when they were in high school, and it still to this day bothers me. But for them, they're excited that I'm here with them now. Right. Like, and I've done a good job, hopefully, in saying we don't live in the past, right? That's why the rear view mirror is this small and the mirror in front of us is this big, right? We don't want to see what's behind us. We want to move forward. So I'm really lucky and blessed, and I can't. I mean, I could make this whole show about him, but I don't want, but we
That's
can do
right.
that.
Well, let me ask you this question though. Because of your relationship, what's something that your son has taught you?
Wow. He has taught me patience. He has taught me to really have another way of thinking, meaning, anytime you're part of a divorce home or just part of a home where there's conflict all the time, you end up having a lot of conversations about that other person. And like, it's just natural. You're like, oh, well, like in my case, oh, well, your mom is this. And she would, and he, Preston, my son, would say, well, you know how mom is. And then in the middle of it, I'm like, no, all I'm doing is fueling things. Like, I'm not changing these generational curses. I'm not changing the trajectory of my family. And yes, I still call my ex-wife as part of the family. I tell her all the time, I say, listen, we're family. We're gonna be like this for the rest of our lives. So we've got to figure all this stuff out. But he's taught me that, how to redirect. He's taught me patience. And he's taught me that what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you could put pressure on your kids, but at the end of the day, they got to put pressure on themselves, and they learn from that. So he's
Yeah.
taught me a whole lot, and
Yeah,
it's
they're going to hold themselves accountable without a doubt.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And how about your daughter? What have you learned from your daughter?
That she's like one of the funniest people. But it's so crazy. So they're totally different. My son is very organized. He meal preps. He eats right. He lifts. He goes to bed at 9. And meanwhile, my daughter is like at some, she's in the DJ booth at a club, or then she's like, she's out partying. But both call me like, hey, we're home. Everything is good. All that stuff. So she reminds me that we don't take things so seriously. Like, life is what you make out of it, and
Yeah.
it's not that serious. It
Yeah.
really isn't. And you just enjoy it. And so she's taught me that.
Coach, love that. Thank you for being vulnerable and bold and brave to share those intimate details. My bonus daughter is 35 years old, who just blessed us with our first grandchild, who's now a year old. And oh my gosh, am I loving that? And then our adopted son is playing professional basketball over in Finland right now.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that my son has taught me, and it's reinforced the discipline and dedication and focus to hard work on obtaining goals. And I
Mhm.
love that because it's like it refuels my fire and passions. And then my daughter, I just see this love and support. And then just, she's following in her mom's footsteps in the beauty industry. And trust me when I tell you I overachieved with my wife. But it's so wonderful, the things that as we grow and evolve, the things that we can learn and take away from a younger generation that teaches us life lessons as we try to lead, guide, and mentor them.
Right. Yeah. And I think what tends to happen is that as we get older, right, we are more strict in our ways, and we stop communicating with our kids. Or we keep communicating from like a coaching perspective, and I have a tendency to always make everything into a life lesson, like everything. And my son will be like, Dad, is this another life lesson? I said, well, yes, but bear with me, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, but then as they get older, it's like, okay, like, hey, you're gonna figure this out. And I tell them all the time, like, I love your growth. I love your growth. And they don't, again, like I said, they don't quite understand. They're like, what? I'm like, just bear with it. When you guys are older,
uh,
you'll get it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then they're gonna be preaching the same thing, and then look in the
Yeah,
mirror and be like, "I just turned into my dad."
that's right. That's right.
I love that, ladies and gentlemen. We're with Coach Hernando Planels, and such a high character young man, full of energy and enthusiasm, a very successful coach who has navigated his ways, through the industry, and love to share some of your stories about that as well. I mean, you mentioned Duke University. I mean, associate head coach at Duke University in the ACC. What was it like sharing a gym with Coach K and that tradition of a blue blood like that? And you guys were having success yourself.
Right. Yeah. And it happened my 7 years there where I would just be in Cameron during practice and I'm staring at all the banners and my boss is like, hey, I'm like, oh, sorry. We're on it. It's just one of those things you just never think you'd ever be there. And I really got the opportunity because I worked Coach K's camp and Coach Joanne P. McCauley, Coach P, as she goes, worked her camp, and she offered me this. She said, "Yeah, I've got this great low-paying, non-coaching job on my staff, and my kids were already in school, still married, and I had never finished my degree, so I had like 5 weeks to finish 2 classes, and I got that. Then I saw my first paycheck. So my first 9 months at Duke, I worked 3 jobs. I worked at Duke. I worked for Synergy as well too, and then I started my own sort of like creative resume service for coaches. So I wouldn't sleep a whole lot, and then 8 months later, a coach left, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to move you up." And mind you, I never coached Division I basketball. I had never coached women's basketball up until then, and it was just a true blessing. And a lot of times, I just tell coaches all the time, you just have to show up, like. You got to go to places like everybody says go to camps and go to, like, I would go to workouts. I would do everything, anything to just say hello, and they'd remember me. But being at Duke and winning ACC championships and being able to coach with a great staff, Coach P's got over 600 wins and
Wow.
all the different things we had and we did, and then then you learn things from John Shire. Like, I coached against John Shire when he was a D League player. So that's
Yeah.
how long I've known him, and
Yeah.
now him being the head coach. So it's just it's awesome watching their growth, watching them see what they do, and people will always like, Duke is a hard job because everyone loves you and everyone hates you. You win one, you lose one game. I'm getting like 5 or 6 emails from every fan who wants to be a coach and thinks that we should do on our end. And then the same thing with Coach K. Like, people were like emailing Coach K, like, "What are you doing? You're not using Zion Williamson right," and blah blah blah. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Great stuff. Just to be a part of that tradition, but I love what you talked about because it truly is about relationships,
Mhm.
letting people know your aspirations. But like you said, showing up, being present, being in the here and now, and then offering of service. How can you help a player in a workout develop and grow in the industry? How can you assist a coach and be an asset to them with your loyalty and hard work and dedication and help the program grow and be a strong person to make those recommendations? So, I mean, I love all the things that you've done and the successes that you've had. And it's hard to believe. I mean, 7 years at Duke in the ACC. What were some of your favorite experiences in that 7 year period? And it's like probably choosing a favorite child. You just can't.
Right.
You love them all. But are there any experiences that stick out to you?
Yeah, they're all away from the basketball court and games. I loved who I worked with every single day. Like, I worked with a great group of people who we came in every day and had a great time, right? Like, it's my boss was amazing, still amazing. They're all really good friends, but it was whether they came to my house for a barbecue, or it was my head coach's 50th birthday, or it was when we ran a 5K. It could have been like a plane trip. It's all those moments. I mean, the games are the games. I remember the games, but I remember the timeouts. I remember the looks on players. I remember being in people's living room and recruiting them and telling, having parents say, "Hey, are you going to be here by the time my daughter graduates?" And knowing that really means something to them. So it's, really, and a lot of my pictures I have of Duke, yeah, I have the team picture, and when we won the ACC championship, but a lot of them are hugs of my players. A lot of them was when recruits came on campus. It wasn't about the games.
Yeah.
And actually, that's probably one of the few things I miss about coaching. It's not about anything else on the court. I miss going into the office and having a great time with the staff
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how we're going to just win at life and help our players.
I love that, coach, because what I hear you saying is the connection, the authentic relationships that are built, that are meaningful relationships that will last for the rest of your life. Uh, and I think that's what a lot of coaches miss. I think some coaches come in there with so much ego and so much paranoia, and they're thinking about me, 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 and yet when it should be we and serving the team and helping others grow and develop in the industry with wherever they're at in their journey. I mean,
Mhm.
I hear you talking about those connections and what that means to you. Is there a success story that sticks out to you that maybe a young person coming in as a walk on and then earning a scholarship and then being successful in their own career choice right now? Is there anything like that that pops out in your head?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. We've was really lucky to recruit and coach 12 players who was drafted in the WNBA.
Wow.
And there I coached Chelsea Graves with the Las Vegas team, and she Lexi Brown, who's with the Sparks. Like, all those are really, really good players. But this player named Haley Gorecki, who's now playing in Poland, and she was all ACC and tremendous player coming out of Chicago. Like, when you watch her play, everything is as was at her speed. She understood her pace and how I'm going to get a move off, etc. And she was injured, really bad hips the first 2 years at Duke, and you saw her grow, and it was just one of those things. Like, I just want to see her be successful, right? And finally, she got healthy, stayed the course like a lot of players, and showed her as much love as we can. And then she became all ACC and was drafted by the Seattle Storm and got her Polish citizenship, and now plays overseas and has some minutes sometimes with the Phoenix Mercury. But she's one of my, I think, best stories, just because you just weren't sure what was going to happen. I had two other players who just finished their career who tore their ACL twice,
Yeah.
and came back and are playing
Wow.
overseas. So there's so many different stories that as that
Oh,
come with it, and you just love everything. And really, it all comes from love. Like,
yeah.
everything comes from the love of not even what you do, it's loving the other human, the other person, that you are there every single day.
Amen.
Because, like, I wouldn't say that's your job. That's what humans do.
Right.
that that's it. If it's all from love, then everything else is going to start to fall into place in the way it's supposed to, not in a way you think it's going to. Right? We always pray for different things to come in our way, but then when it doesn't happen our way, we're all upset about it. That's not the way it works. You just understand that if life is fluid, then you have to be fluid as well.
I love it. Great stuff there. Wonderful nuggets here from Coach HP, and just a wealth of knowledge and experience and growth, and just a tremendous speaker, and blessed and honored to have him here on our show. Um, you also talked, you said, hey, you had never coached women. And I mean, I've been around coaches who have coached at the highest levels, both male and female. And here it is, Women's Appreciation Day. You've been able to work with women. Was there really a difference when you get right down to it? Or was it simply just basketball and it just happened to be female gender that you were coaching?
Yeah, it's just basketball. I think I always would say, when I was coaching women, there was extra care involved. Like, there was an extra thank you, an extra stopping by the office and hanging out. Those were those things, but everybody wants to be coached, and everybody wants to know how you are going to help them get better.
Amen.
So I don't think there's that. I think on both ends, the issues when it comes to player relationships is, and I always say this, players are almost, they take on the persona of being in the middle of almost like a divorce, because you have the coaches on one side, then you have their parents on one side. The parents are asking, why aren't you playing? The coaches are saying, this is why you're not playing. And the kid is in the middle, doesn't want to make mom and dad angry, and doesn't want to make the coach. So they're kind of like in the middle. And then you have this weird effect that goes on. It happens with men and women. when I was coaching the G League, same thing. Coaching women's basketball, same thing, right? So I don't believe there is a difference. You're going to run horns, you're going to run horns, right? There's like any team, I can do this with my team, I can't do this with my team. And I guess there's the over the rim factor, but I don't know. I don't see any difference whatsoever.
Yeah, in its purest level, it's basketball, and it's high level players competing at a high level, and us as coaches trying to put them in a position to be successful with that love, with that nurturing, with that, holding them accountable and, helping them achieve their goals and dreams. And so I'm glad you shared that interesting perspective because you've been on both sides of the coin. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I think it was well done. You also spent time internationally like I have, and we've been blessed to have a passport full of ink, but you were able to spend time in a place that I would love to have spent time with. I had a friend who played in New Zealand for 12 years, married a Kiwi gal, and, he always talked about how beautiful the country was. How was that experience in New Zealand for you?
It was awesome. It was actually, I'd have to say, my most favorite coaching experience. And a lot of it has to be, I was blessed to be, their junior national team coach.
Yeah.
And, so when you're representing a country and you're representing a country with strong cultural beliefs, and this beautiful Maui language and the beautiful haka dance and, the pride that people have is amazing. Like I had on that team, I think of the 12 girls, I think 8 or 9 are playing college basketball here in the States. And one of them plays at BYU. I had another play at College of Southern Idaho. I got 2 at Portland, one at New Mexico State. Like they're all over, and still, we all have a group chat with myself and my great assistant coaches and team manager. And, we're always saying, different things, and I should be a lot more active than I am a lot of times, but you're on that, and you get to see what they're doing and how they're doing. And it's a beautiful country. And I'm always talking to all the coaches there, and like whatever I can do to help anything, let me know. I love New Zealand. It's a great place.
I've seen so many beautiful pictures of the pristine country, and like you say, the tradition of the Maui culture and the Maori way of life, and that lifestyle, my friend said was amazing. But he talked about, how pristine of a country it was. Now he said there was an adjustment driving on the other side of the road, the other side of the car. What was that a unique transition for you because everything was on the opposite side?
Yeah, there was more than a bunch of times I turned the wrong way in the wrong section. You just see cars coming at you, and you're just like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. But no, it was like in the beginning, you're just like, wow, how do people drive stick shift with this if it's on that side? Luckily I had automatic. But yeah, no, it is like a great country, and I just enjoy it. Like you said, when you're able to travel, you get to see different cultures, you get to see how people work, and live. It just gives you an entirely different outlook on everything.
That's right. You get a global perspective, and you learn things about your home country that sometimes we don't see in the news or hear because they have a different perspective of our egos and our self-centeredness and how we operate.
Absolutely. They go, and it's just, but when you go through it, I think it's more of an impact for me than me making an impact on them. And I made this mistake earlier in my coaching career, thinking that I was coming in like I was the person with all the answers, when the reality is the people I was working with in the different countries were the answers for me.
Yeah.
And for me to learn and grow and everything else. So
that's right. Well said. Yeah, because we have to adapt to the culture, to the language, to the currency, to different things that, we weren't accustomed to. So I'm glad that you were able to speak on that. And you mentioned the haka. I've seen players' reaction when the national team, the Tall Blacks, were playing internationally, and they hear the chanting and they see the passion in the dance. But yet, if you haven't experienced that, try
Mhm.
to explain that from the inside of the pride that they have for their tribal traditions, because that's really what fuels all that. And to be in that Polynesian culture is something that is, yeah, it's matriarchal, but yet, man, I'll tell you what, they are so passionate about what they do. And a lot of players are just stunned when they see it performed, for them against other countries.
Yeah, the haka, they really have their own specific ones for each specific group. Like they had a tall black version, etc. One of the best experiences I saw was when we were playing Samoa, and so Samoa does the haka as well too. So now you have both teams like going back and forth, and just the intensity, right? And the pride that goes and the energy,
That's right.
to do all of that is huge. And so much respect is given to the opponent, but also so much opponent respect is given back to the
Yeah.
team as well too. So it doesn't get old.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches are like, well, hurry up, let's get this thing started. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm just going to sit here and watch this the whole time.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll get to the game.
Yeah. I see. I agree. I think to be immersed into that culture and you have a deeper understanding of the passion and the pride, it takes it to a whole nother level. But if it doesn't excite you, you simply don't have a pulse. I'm just going to
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah, love it. Now, and again, now you were able to, coach in the G League. You were with the Maine Red Claws. Talk about that experience and talk about, being clear up in the Northeast, in the G League, and how did that differentiate from other experiences that you had in your career where you were able to once again, make an impact on that franchise?
So I think two of the hardest jobs in the world coaching is Philippine college basketball,
Ooh,
uh,
small
because
and quick, baby.
because of the amount of money that is involved by the sports programs and how they pay players. It's a different amateur rule over there. And then I think the G League is the second hardest, the other hardest one, and simply because as a coach it's hard to plan because your main team, like the parent team, may call you and say, hey, we're going to send so and so down and they'll be there in 2 hours. And so it's not a question of like if they're going to start or not. They're starting and they're getting the ball, and you've got to rearrange your play sheet or whatever to make sure they get the ball. And then you've got to help the player who's not going to start, got to get bumped out of the start line because this person's coming. So they're already upset. So that part is really difficult. Combine that with the first month in the G League, every player thinks they're going to make the NBA. Then after a month, the top 7 on your team kind of still believe they can make it. The rest of the team, they do not. So now you have to help them go through their low moments, which means they'll play bad. Then you have to find something else that's going to inspire them, motivate them. And back then, European teams could buy out players for contracts. I don't think it's like that anymore. I think you actually have to just continue on with it. And
Yeah.
so it's I still have a few friends who coach in the league, and it's still tough, right? You're flying Southwest Airlines. I love Southwest, but it's
Yeah.
but I'm also 5'11". I'm not 6'1".
Yeah. Well, I can remember too, you had the A level, B level, C level contracts.
Yep.
You had your two-way players. And again, trying to find that happy medium to continue to develop the talent, which is your job, but yet to have that synergy with your parent club to make sure that you're kind of experimenting a little bit, testing things that could possibly work, with the parent team and having players ready to, go up and play a 10-day and then come right back. So, yeah, there was a constant revolving door and I can see those challenges, but yet to still stay high energy and, be that positive force of influence to be like, hey, you know what? We're going to learn from this. We're going to grow from this. Let's help you continue to develop your go-to move and then a counter move. So I'm sure you're juggling many things within the team, within the staff, and within the, synergy between the two organizations.
Yeah, it's so. And back then there was also the main team had their own basketball operations, was still working with the Celtics as well too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as much defined as it was now, where there's an actual
Right.
GM of the team based on the NBA. But it's still difficult, right? And the NBA is such a particular style of basketball. And I think Steve Clifford just talked about it, how like everyone runs the same stuff now. So your player
just different terminology.
That's right. So you gotta have your player development has got to be the same, and you really put a focus on that. And then you're also helping those players to grow as adults in a really tough environment when you're traveling and eating and etc.
Yeah, love it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we got Coach Hernando Planels with us. Coach HP has been blessed to have traveled the globe, coached males, females, at the college level, professional level, FIBA level, national team level. Great experiences you've had. You also got to spend time in the Big Ten. University of Illinois. Talk a little bit about, because I grew up in Big Ten country. I'm an Indiana boy. So, so knowing the Big Ten, how did you enjoy that conference? Because with ACC and Big Ten, what were the comparisons in the two leagues and levels of play for you?
Yeah, I think so. The Big Ten is probably get crap for this, but they're not as athletic as the ACC. Right?
Yeah. But I think that's true. That's facts.
You just don't have and there's a particular style of play I think the Big Ten has, or for the most part, right? And a lot of it has to do with the Big Ten really focuses on regional recruiting a little bit more. It, it's almost like when Nebraska football was really good. I mean, look at Iowa football, the same, and if you look at Iowa basketball, it's the same thing, right? They understand, where they can get their players. Meanwhile, in the ACC, if you're Miami, Florida State, Duke, Louisville, you can attract from around the country with it. I enjoy it. I only spent 8 months at Illinois.
Yeah.
I was coaching at NAIA school before that, and one of the people on the staff gave me a phone call and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I said no. And then we talked a little bit more, and then it comes down to, what is the contract going to say? This is what I need. And then they said okay, and then I said, oh crap, I got to make a decision now. And took the job and was there for 8 or 9 months. But it was the same thing. I love the staff. I worked for a Hall of Fame coach, Nancy Fay, who has won 5 national championships at Division III level. And I don't care what level it is. It's hard, as you know, Coach, to win a championship at any level.
That's right.
Whatsoever. And so I learned a lot from her with everything else. But no, I enjoyed it. The difference still too is the weather. Walking around Champaign, Illinois, when it's 0 degrees and no snow.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah, that precipitation's always in the air, and cold and gloomy winters. And we like here in Salt Lake City, I mean, I've got the dry cold. So I mean, it could be 4 inches of snow, and as you saw, probably kids are walking around in shorts and flip-flops, and we're doing okay.
100%. I don't know what's going on.
and I'm going to say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just an outside observation. The ACC, as you mentioned, more athletic. Mm-hmm. Would you say the Big Ten is more finesse type of play with their style of play in the Big Ten overall, or not so much?
No, I still think, anytime you're going to have Tom Izzo on, in the Big Ten, they're going to get the ball inside. They're going to work inside out. Iowa's the same way as well too, but they're getting better shooters. Nebraska has some shooters. So I think there's evolving, but it's just like the NBA, right? So the bigs in the Big Ten are usually primarily strong, 6'10", get the ball in the post. Yeah. You go to the ACC, the bigs are more NBA style, where it's more perimeter dominated. They could shoot threes a little bit more. So I think there's that. The adjustment isn't, I mean, the difference isn't large, but you can still see it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take, I think, but again, with college basketball getting bigger, with USC and UCLA coming into the Big Ten, there's going to be shifts in everything over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. A quick question. NIL, are you in favor of it, or do you think there's still so much that needs to be kind of ironed out and corrected with it?
I do agree with it. I think it's just hard to figure out what exactly to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Because like the rules are ridiculous, right? The LSU quarterback got, I don't know, $800,000 or whatever. He doesn't win the starting position, so he just quits playing football. But you still get the money, because you can't pay them for playing. I mean, you sit there and you're going to hire a player $10,000 to come and sign 5 autographed basketballs, or now, granted, they were doing that in college basketball for years. Like guys who were paying $1 for their lease at different schools to drive their car around. So it's just a little different.
Yeah.
I think then also, how do you handle it? I think the schools are having a big issue because the donors aren't donating to the program. Now they're giving their money to players.
Yeah.
And I think it just opens the door, but can it be controlled? No. And
how do you legislate it? How do you police it?
You can't. And I know there's still some people saying, they're getting a free education, blah, blah. I totally understand that. But being a dad of a student athlete, they don't live regular lives.
Yeah.
They don't they'll go to parties, but they know they have practice the next day. Yeah. They got workouts at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. They've got all these things they have to do on top of their studies.
Yeah.
And if you're football and basketball, specifically men's basketball, people are coming to your games, they're cheering your name. I don't know.
I definitely think it's a step in the right direction by the NCAA, because I feel like for the first time they were actually proactive instead of reactive to helping the players who were obviously being exploited in a multi-billion-dollar industry. So kudos to them for finally at least making steps towards trying to get it right.
Yeah, and I think they're just, with the new, commissioner of the NCAA or president of NCAA, it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I mean, now, I think they suspended a coach or Bill Self or Katie Meyer at Miami for, they had this dinner with an NIL person. Like, this is what you're going to police?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
So, yeah, there's a lot to clean up, but at least it's a step in the right direction for the student athletes.
Absolutely.
We can definitely agree on that. Good stuff. Fascinating to me. I love the fact that you were able to consult on a movie with basketball. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so I've done that for the last 20 years. So it really first started. I was a coach on this TV show called Slam Ball, full contact basketball and trampolines, if anybody remembers that.
Yeah.
And then I met, this one person who called me and said, "Hey, we've got a movie. I need a basketball, choreographer, coordinator, etc. Would you be interested?" And the movie ended up being Coach Carter. And
about the Richmond team, yeah.
About the Richmond team, and worked on a few films for Adam Sandler and Martin Lawrence, and then but it wasn't stable, so knowing me, my decision-making process, I'm picking 2 of the worst stable jobs in the world, filmmaking and coaching.
Yeah.
And so I when I got to Duke, I stopped doing that a little bit, and then after Duke, I got back in, did a couple more TV shows. I have a show right now called Swagger on Apple TV. I went to Greece to do the Giannis movie called Rise, which is on Disney Plus.
Great, yes, outstanding.
So it's all piecework, right? So now I do that whenever the projects show up, and then I'll go ahead and do a bunch of different speaking engagements, work with organizations on their connection, etc., using all the coaching principles, like Coach. And so it's just kind of piecing it all together to make it work. But yeah, I love working in the film industry. It's a great part. When you're working, it's great. When you're not working, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what's next?
Yeah,
Right?
stability and longevity is
Yeah.
not in the vocabulary.
Yeah. No.
What was it like working with Common, who, you know, you have to make him look like a professional basketball player. Of course, he had an injury in the movie, but were there challenges to try to make it, you know, look fluid for him?
Yeah, so we you know, you do workouts. Really what you do, you take a look at the script, you see what action he has to do and what's the kind of play behind it and what's the storyline behind it. And then
Wow.
because we don't have time to do like this whole training camp and like make him run stairs and all that other stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, what's the base? What can you do? One dribble, two dribble pull-ups, you know, all those things. So once you go through that evaluation process and workout, then if the director and the director of photography for is open to it, you have open conversations on how to film it, whether it's
Yeah.
close up,
Yeah.
whether it's a leg. But then also we end up hiring a basketball double just in case we need one. So for that one, that movie called Just Right, we used Jay Hernandez, who
Ah,
yeah, was the assistant coach
yeah.
in Charlotte. I think he still
Yeah.
is, and I knew
Yeah.
him when he was in New Jersey with pro, you know, he started Pro Skills and we're just working guys out. And
Yeah.
we went ahead and brought him on, and he had similar skin tone to Common, but Common has like a gold skin tone. Like he's gold.
Yeah.
Not light skin, he's not pale, he's not, and Jay is Puerto Rican, if I remember correctly. And so we would have to send him into the tanning salon. But then at
And
times
get
he
the
would,
right angle and the lighting.
yeah, but then he would tan too much. So then we're like, no, no, this week you can't go, you know, with everything. But no, yeah, it's great. And they're all they, you know, every actor wants to be an athlete and every athlete wants to be an actor.
I like it. Well, in that industry, who were some of the most fun people to meet and kind of get to know a little bit, even though your interactions may have been small, but who was like, wow, I'm with Adam Sandler, or wow, I'm with Dwight Howard today, or I'm with, you know, I'm with Common, or so
Yeah.
who were some of the people that would kind of wowed you and maybe not starstruck, but it's like, I can't believe I'm really here working with you.
Yeah, Adam Sandler would be the top one. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, besides the fact that he's Adam Sandler, he brought me into his family. His kids played with my kids. Like he is who he is. He is, I think, one of the most genuine people you'll find.
Yeah.
And he takes care of his people. I was lucky to work with him on 3 films. The first one was The Longest Yard, and
Oh, the football movie. Yeah.
yeah, we talked a little bit, but on as the film projects went forward, we talked more and more. And my last job with him, like my job was to literally just play basketball with him. Like he wanted to work out, that's how we wanted to work out. So then, you know, I had a schedule pickup games. So one day we have like Vanilla Ice playing with us. The next day we have Colin Farrell. You know, we have all these different people with everything else, but he, you know, he's a competitor. He's a very good basketball player on top of
Yeah,
that.
he's got some skills. He can shoot a
Yeah,
little bit, and he's got, you know, he's got some spatial awareness and can pass.
yeah,
Let's listen to our coach talk here, but
yeah. No,
yeah, he's got a little
he,
bit of game to him.
he was great. But probably the best story with him has nothing to do with me or me working with him. It has to do with my kids. Preston and Gabby were at Disneyland, and they were just having a good time, and they saw Adam. He was there with his 2 daughters, but he had, you know, a hat on,
Oh,
and he was going out a certain way, and they started yelling, "Adam, Adam!" And obviously he wouldn't look, and he goes, "We're Hernando's kids," and he stops, and he turns back around, and he walked over to them and talked to them, and you know, spend, you know, 2-3 minutes with them. But it's such a, it's awesome. Like when they could do that, it's awesome. So I think he's one of the
wow.
best people.
Class act. And how about, and congratulations to him on Hustle, a
Oh yeah,
well done movie where he's an international scout and kind of gives people the feel and taste of what it was to coach internationally. And I kind of appreciated that perspective, kind of like, you know, loving basketball back in the day. But,
right.
you know, it's nice to see them kind of showcase some of that of lifestyles that you and I can relate to.
Yeah. No, it was great watching him do that. And just I think I don't know if anybody thought in his earlier years he was this amazing actor. I don't know if he was or not, because I don't judge any actress, because I just think just to do in front of camera is amazing. But that movie, Hustle, you see all the acting strength within him, and it was such but beyond that, you're right, like his international travels, how he handled himself, how he was trying to find and selling, the guys to be, you got to take him, right? Like those story points and how well he did that was so beautiful.
Yeah, and the basketball was actually pretty good, and to get Ant in there, and you saw some cameos from Jordan Clarkson, and
Oh yeah.
just great movie, and it's fun to kind of see that when it's put together well, and kudos to them. We've got 2 or 3 minutes here, Coach. You've had great experiences. What advice would you have for a young coach trying to get into the industry and trying to make a livelihood out of it? That's a loaded question, and that can go a lot of different ways. But what advice would you give someone trying to break in to the coaching industry and profession?
So I think you've got to be fluid. You've got to be able to go anywhere, any place, anytime.
That mobility, yeah.
You've got to have just take on the opportunities, no matter how big or small that they are. And you have to understand that your vision of what you think you're going to be as a coach, you will not come close to it. And not as a knock on anybody. It's just how life works, right? It really, really is. And you have to be hard-headed. You have to keep going. And you have to make moves. You have to be able to leave when you don't want to leave, and you're going to have to stay when you don't want to stay.
Yeah.
I think all those things, and then like we said earlier, you got to show up. Like, how are people? Yeah. I mean, I got to coach in the NBA G League because I stayed in a house with other G League coaches at a draft combine, at the NBA draft combine, which I didn't know any of those guys. I just knew one coach. And all of a sudden, one coach talked to me about, hey, I may have a spot open, which then led to the other coaches thinking, wait, why is he talking to Hernando? Maybe I should talk to Hernando. So you don't know. You don't know. So throw all the plans out the window that your wife or girlfriend is trying to ask you. So what's the plan? There is no plan. I hate telling them there is no plan.
Yeah. I
Just
love
go.
it. Yeah. And you know what? You don't want to do it for the money. You're going to make a mistake. And don't do it for the fame. Do it for the passion and the purpose and for the love. And you do it with the right intangibles and be of service to others, good things are going to happen to good people as long as you can persevere and continue to make sacrifices. I think the sky is the limit for anybody. But yes, life will throw you curveballs. Life will come at you and your priorities will change. But if you just go in it to help others and make it about them and what you can provide for them as a service, more power to you. Get rid of the ego.
No, absolutely. You have to be able to do all of that to keep it moving forward over and over again. I think just as, being a coach at any level, it is tough. It is absolutely tough. And you just have to have this mental fortitude and have this overall joy to go apply for jobs. I do tell young coaches today, listen, you have to attack coaching as if you just saw the most beautiful person in the world and you got to talk to them. Like, you just have to. Like, you approach it like that, that's when all your, emotions are up and your hormones are like, you do that, you're going to land in a good place because you're attacking it with the same vigor you would when you see this amazing, gorgeous person walking across the street.
I love it. I once heard Coach Frank Layden share a story, and he said, make it a job to go get a job.
Yes.
And man, it just resonated with me, those words. And I thought, you know what? He is exactly right. And a lot of people see him as this comical guy, but I'm going to tell you what, that man has so much knowledge and experience and wisdom, and his frankly speaking engagements, that man has, boy, he can set a room on fire just like you, Coach.
Well, listen, I'm just happy to be named in the same sentence That's Frank later.
Hey, let me tell you something. Not just because you're on this show, general managers, high school principals, uh, people in the game needs more Coach Hernando's out there because he does it the right way with high character, with class, and he will represent whatever franchise or institution. Let's get you back on the court, brother, because you belong there, because you do a phenomenal job, brother. I've been watching you from afar. Kudos to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and so do you. Like I'd say the same thing to you as well too. The world needs both of us on the court.
Well, let's go make it happen. Let's make it a job to get a job, brother. Hey, God bless you, my friend. Great to connect. And thank you for being selfless, sharing your time and energy and expertise with our viewers. I know they're going to be empowered just by hearing your words, but hopefully they will put into practice the nuggets that you shared, brother.
Well, Scott, I'm a huge fan of yours. I appreciate you having me on today. It's awesome always seeing you. And next time, definitely, when I'm in Salt Lake City, we're going to get together.
Can't wait to hug your neck and break bread, brother. God bless you. Be safe on your travels. Keep impacting lives like you do on a daily basis, brother. I love you, man.
Love you too, man. I'll talk to you.